Hey everyone. Hey, good morning, good day, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are. I'm PL Stewart. I am so stoked to be here on Six Elementals with an absolutely fabulous guest. One of my favorite booktubers. We all know that Zachary Shaye is one of my favorite booktubers out there. I have the privilege of having him join me today. How are you doing, my friend?
I am doing amazing, PL. Thank you so much for having me. I am also a big fan of yours. Love your channel. Love your writing. And I'm just excited to be here.
Well, I first of all, I have to start off by saying publicly how incredibly grateful I am. For those who don't know, Shay's organized a read along with some absolutely phenomenal booktubers. I hope I get everybody: Philip Chase, Dave from Four Corners of the Page, The Cure from Chef Esteem, blah, 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 yourself. How can I get red Jake? Nerd Lover Rising. Yeah, like this group organized, and thanks to Zachary's efforts and I guess prompting them to read my book, have decided to do a deep dive into all the books in my series, and they're up to Lord and King. I think they just published the most recent Lord and King video of a little while ago, and now they'll be hopefully moving on to Alliance Pride. I see, obviously,
Going
Zachary.
strong.
So I am just so. I mean, what a dream for an author to have like these really popular booktubers decide to discuss their work like that. I mean, what author wouldn't be giddy about that, right? And of course I am. I'm just so kind of the thoughtful analysis and just obviously with you, Zach, the effort to do that. So I just wanted to publicly just say thank you so much. It's a dream come true, and thank you for doing that.
Well, it's absolutely a joy. When I was setting it up, like I'd never done a buddy read on my channel with my friends before. And I didn't want to do everyone's talked about Mistborn, everyone's talked about Sun Eater. So I really wanted to highlight a series that there wasn't a big buddy read going on for. And like Janny Wurts through email told me like this is one of the best self-pub series you're gonna find, and very much endorsed it. And I looked into it, sounded very interesting. And originally I just set it up with my friends, and then Philip Chase comments on one of my videos where I announced that I want to do a buddy read. At this point, I'd asked David and Jake, and Philip Chase was like, "Could I be in on that?" Because he'd already read book one. And when Philip Chase asked to be in I didn't even ask him because he's such a big booktuber in my mind. But obviously, like the second he asked, it's like, well, of course, you're Philip Chase, of course, without a doubt.
But yeah, like I mean, I think you're all big booktubers in my corner space, and all phenomenal. And yeah, it's just been again, it's been just brilliant to watch. But anyways, I, I've done enough to say how much I think. I'll continue to thank you, obviously privately, but publicly, to say how amazing I am. I'll continue to say that throughout as you go forward with the series. I hope you all continue to enjoy it. I hope it has the the twists and turns and the surprises, especially with the book coming up, that offer you a great reading experience and give you lots of fodder to talk about. So, but I want to get into you, and this broadcast is about you. So I have to say this, and from the outside looking in, your channel is fantastic. It's very slick. It's very polished. It's very. I would say it definitely takes that easy to understand, but very intellectual, very deep, very deep level analysis. I'm always impressed by how deep, and it's not just because clearly you're a very smart person, but I'm always impressed when people so young. First of all, you have a love for the classics, which I appreciate. Being someone who loves the classics, and you've delved into a lot of books that a lot of people your age perhaps haven't broached. But yeah, when it comes to your channel, though, I want to say that yeah, I mean, when I get a glimpse of your channel, it's almost like your intro is like almost like yeah, Zach seems to have the perfect life. He seems to live in a beautiful city. He's got this beautiful place. Like you always have these little pictures of you reading like on the couch or like at a library or outside, or like it just seems that life is good. Obviously, you have a lot of great books. You have a great book collection. I know that you're pursuing your studies in nursing, which wow, like kudos to you. That's an incredible profession, a very
Thank you, thank
selfless
you.
profession. So thank you for all you do and all you're going to do in your nursing career, and putting yourself out there and at risk for people, and trying to be the healers are the best of our society.
Oh.
So thank you for taking that on, and having the privilege of having worked alongside a lot of, especially emergency medical services and
Mm.
nurses and doctors in the past in my career. I can say they are the best of us, and I so admire what they do. So thank you for taking that on. So but how does this marry, all this marry with your booktube channel, your love of reading? Was it academic in nature? Like, how did the fantasy sci-fi figure into you and all you do growing up and now going into
Mm.
this nursing career, which isn't necessarily, connected just at first blush to a love of fantasy, but how did that all transpire?
So the love of fantasy, I think, began around like 10 years old. My sister would always watch Peter Jackson's Lord of the Ring films, and I just became in love, had them on VHS. And at this point, DVDs were a thing in my childhood, but we had them on VHS. So I adored the Peter Jackson films. And from about 10 on, I'd been reading like just however many fantasy books I could up until this point in my life. Um, and I guess recently, I say recently, but about in my 20s is whenever I branched out and read more classics because I'd just been hitting the fantasy really, really hard. And I still love fantasy. That'll always be my favorite genre. But I think I needed to read widely to appreciate the fantasy books more. And then, so nursing, I'm actually coming to it really late. So I graduated high school, 18 years old, as most of us do. And I joined the military, and that was to pay for my college. But as a result, I'm going to college a little bit later than a lot of my peers. Most of them are like 20 years old, so I'm kind of the unk, as they call me. But uh, I definitely always wanted to be in a position where I could help people. And while I do think um, serving my country was a noble pursuit, I will be upfront with it and say, like, while I am proud of my service, it was mainly to afford college. I just didn't see that as a career path for me versus working in healthcare is something that I think I could, go on to do for the next 20 odd years. So yeah, and all the while through the military, I got stationed in Alaska. So I was reading like 150 fantasy books a year, like just going through them, going through Malazan Book of the Fallen, going through Realm of the Elderlings. I was 19 years old and stationed in Alaska. I mean, there's not much to do aside from snowboarding. And even then, you can't do that every day. So I was just reading series and series and series.
Wow. So, if you don't mind my asking, fascinating background, obviously. So, what was it like to be part of the military? What you're willing to disclose? You may have been in a classified role, but just what you're willing to talk about. Just how does being in the military, being a soldier, the training, everything that essentially what at the end of the day, there's dozens, there's innumerable roles in the military. However, basically the function of a soldier is combat, right? At the end of the day, when you break it down to brass tacks, how does that influence and affect how you look at fantasy? Especially fantasy is well known, a lot of big epic fantasy for battle scenes and things like that. How is that all incorporated and affected how you look at fantasy and your love for books?
Um, it definitely the example I can think of right off rip is I did appreciate how accurate Steven Erickson's, like, even though it is a fantasy world, the rank structure, the way that the lieutenants and the captains and the sergeants all communicate with one another, the camaraderie, the dialogue, it felt very authentic. Even though, so I was stationed in Alaska, and I was part of the civil engineer squadron, so we did a lot of base repair. So, like when the pilots are trying to leave and the hangar door is like stuck open because it's negative 40 degrees in Alaska, I just sitting in my room reading my book, I get a call on the phone because I'm on call and I have to go there. And, I'm 20 years old. So I get there and I'm like, that's a broken hangar door. I'm not really sure what to do with this. Let me call someone else. And, but in terms of just the community within the military, I think Malazan is one that does it really, really, really well. Um, and yeah, I definitely think it helped me enjoy some of those aspects a little bit more than if I hadn't have lived that experience prior to reading that series. And I'm sure there's other series that hit on this as well, but Malazan's kind of the one that like forefront in my mind in terms of accurately showing what military life is like.
Yeah, and Malazan sticks out for me as well, and that's an excellent example. And when I think about you in the military, and yeah, the camaraderie relationships, but also the complexities of being a military member, whether you're rank and file or officer, etc., being able to um, follow rules. Excuse me, sorry.
Thank you.
Being able to follow rules, be fighting for necessarily a mission, an objective, a cause that you may or may not agree with, believe it, but still following the orders, and
Mhm.
also finding a way to have compassion for your enemy, the person at the side, the person that potentially you've been assigned to kill, for trying to understand their ideology, where they're coming from, being caught up in something that's much bigger than you. I mean, soldiers march to the tune of their commanders, and commanders march to the tune of their overall leaders, and it's a very complex dynamic that isn't necessarily as simple as it seems, right?
Mhm.
And that I'm wondering, as someone as part of being the military, you're part of the United States military, which is one of the biggest militaries, if not the biggest, in the entire world. It is a
Mhm.
global superpower. It has been thought of as the arm of essentially the world's police force. It is something larger than life. It has its own mythos. Like what did it feel to be part of that? Especially again when we're talking about fantasy, and you look at something like Malazan, where the Malazan Empire is this thing, and
Right.
you have at the time when no spoilers it when you open Malazan, you have an empress that has risen through potentially nefarious means to be where she is, and she has her own agenda. And then you have all these subplots, all these leaders and commanders, and filter all the way down through to, especially we talk about the bridge burner, a
Right.
company who has their own agenda. Like, how did all that the structure, the hierarchy of military, how did you look at all those things based on where you were in the military at the time when you started reading these fantasy books?
I will say, it helped me empathize with the characters. Like, I think a lot of people when they read Malazan, they're like, yeah, how are we supposed to root for these characters that seem very noble on the surface, but they're in service to like this really corrupt regime? And I served under our current president, who I'm not a fan of. I served under him the first time, and it was definitely a struggle for me, like finding purpose in my service when I was very disenfranchised by the current, political head of our country. Very, not satisfied with that. But, it I didn't have the privilege to not go into the military out of high school. It was kind of just I could have taken out a ton of student loans. I could have figured out some way to go to college, but it just wasn't very viable at the time. So, reading Malazan, it's like very easy to condemn these characters and be like, well, even if you are good people, you are serving this very bad person or this very morally bankrupt person. But I think it just let me walk a mile in their shoes and be like, well, not everybody has the privilege and the setup to always be virtuous. Sometimes you have to do what you can to survive, whether that be joining the military, doing other things that in a perfect world, I would not have wanted to serve under our current president the first time around, but I didn't have the options to forego that decision completely.
Yeah, and I think you're certainly smart enough to know that like irrespective of who the actual titular head of a country is, because they change constantly. They get if you're an elected official, you serve terms, you get elected in and out of power. They change the leaders. Political party changes because different leaders from different political parties in the United States become the head, regardless of who the actual head of the country is,
Right.
and the unique perspective worldview that in your case, president of your country is essentially thought of to be the leader of the free world.
Mhm.
Regardless of who that person is, there's still, like I said, a mythos about the United States military. There's still, it's still revered and held in awe in terms of the sheer numbers, the firepower, the capabilities, the historical aspect of being a peacekeeping force, a force that is in the past liberated, other countries that were seen as being repressed, a force that helped, save democracy essentially in world wars, but realizing though that that's a very historical perspective, and you can look back through any lens at a historical perspective and the now. Uh, did any of that factor into how you felt in terms of your pride in serving as well? And how, like you said, you realize that, hey, sometimes you don't have a choice. You got to serve to survive. Some countries have conscription where it's mandatory. You must be. You're drafted. You have to serve, right? Some people, are forced into service, right? But it's more about what you do when you're there and how you can do it with the most honor and integrity. I think that you can, and I think especially we look at examples like Malazan. I think that's what those characters are trying to do, while having their own moral code, serving the empire, and in your case, serving the state as the country as best they could. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah, I would say that's a pretty good allegory for how I was feeling. So there are better checks and balances in our modern world than in the Malazan Empire. But yeah, I would say that's a pretty one-to-one to about how I was feeling. And it could be that I was reading Malazan during the beginning years of my military service that had me going like, oh, they're just like me. No, I'm kidding. But yeah.
Now wow, that's incredible. I want to quickly put up. I got so much to talk to you about, but quickly, can't ignore the wonderful people stopping by. We have a brilliant member of the community. Speaking of well-read and knowledgeable, amazing people, it's Mac. Mac, thanks so much for coming by. He says greetings, salutations, fine gentlemen. Mac is just a wealth of knowledge.
So much.
Like I hope to have Mac on the channel as well in the future. So always great to see you, Mac. Thank you so much for stopping by. And then Cole. Hey, Cole from Cookie Books. What's going on, brother? Check out Cole's channel as well. He's an up-and-coming booktuber. He's posting some fabulous content as well. I had the privilege of interviewing with Cole on his channel. He said Found Shay's channel through a discussion with Philip. Yep. Can't stay for live, but excited for replay. Have a great time. Thanks so much, Cole. Hope you enjoy the replay. We'll catch you later. And then Max says, yep, had quite some experience through my own year of Army National Service in Northern Norway, next to Russia. Wow. Okay. Ooh. We're going to have to chat about that one, Mac. I want to have you on what that was like.
I did not have that Mac lore prior to this.
No, neither did I. I wasn't aware of that about the legend himself, but we're definitely going to have to expand more on that when I talk to him. Big thanks to, Burnifus Public Library. And I guess that's where Mac gained a lot of knowledge. Another fabulous booktuber, Britton. What's up? Some Okie dude. Check out Britton's channel. He says what's up. And
great friend of mine.
He's amazing. Great guy. Didn't know you're in the military. See the things you find out when you do these interviews, eh?
I don't have the look. I will admit I do not have the look.
Well, I guess like, did you have a buzz cut? Did you, what was your... Did you have
I had to. I had the same hair I do now whenever I sat in the chair at 18, and they.
Wow, that's crazy. That's crazy. But so you get into the military. You used to go to college to become a nurse. How and when did the BookTube channel start? And how was that starting a BookTube channel? And okay, you start out and like any other social media platform, you don't have any followers, you don't know who's going to follow you, you don't know, how successful or not successful it's going to be in terms of subscribers and what your reach is going to be and all. Like, how did that feel, and how was it at its inception?
So the main reason I started the BookTube channel is I was going to school for nursing, and I had finished all my prerequisites. So you do 2 years of prerequisites, and then you do 2 years within the nursing program to get your bachelor's in nursing science. And I had finished my prereqs within a year and a half. And even that half year, that one semester, I was only taking 12 credit hours. It wasn't as arduous as the year that came before. A lot of my AP credits allowed me to just forego, that second year for the most part. So I was stuck there for a whole semester, but I hit the requirements, but I didn't act fast enough to like enter into the program a semester early. So I was just stuck waiting for my, for my interview and for the application process, but I had all the credits. I could go take other classes, but they wouldn't in any way contribute to my degree plan. So I was like, okay, well, I got this downtime. I'm going to start a YouTube channel. And because it's, I just watch YouTube, I watch BookTube all the time, just going from class to class before I got super into audiobooks. Because I had a block with audiobooks. Now I listen to them all the time, but at the time I couldn't. So I spent all that time walking to classes, just listening to Philip Chase, listening to all the different Tom Orange, Jake from Nerd Level Rising, just listening to their stuff and trying to find new recommendations for different fantasy books. And I'm like, you know what? I feel like I'm well read enough to where I have something to say. So I just started posting them. There was a point where I was posting like a video every single day, and then now I cannot do that. I'm just kind of taking it as it comes. Nursing school definitely slowed down my like video production and slowed down the reading as well. And before I probably would have taken that to heart a little bit, but now I'm just like, as the videos come, they'll come. And, as I find time for it, I'll find time for it. But I'm super relieved that I had that semester to set it up, because I was able to kind of build a following and get into a workflow prior to getting into my nursing program. And while that has pushed a lot of the productivity to the side to focus on nursing, it's still like I can still fall back on that workflow I established for myself and, get back into a groove.
Well, you definitely built up a following, and you're certainly, I consider, a pretty successful booktuber. And for the relatively short amount of time you have on your channel, quite popular. Everybody else talks about Shaye. I think one of the things, like I said, I love about your content is, it's that balance between, the straightforward, simple analysis, a really in depth, very insightful, very intellectual, like cerebral, commentary that you make, and especially on the classics, man. And like, I'm just always blown away listening to you when you talk about it on the level of analysis you have. And so, particularly with the classics, and we were talking about Malazan earlier. Obviously, that's considered classical by some, but I'm talking about ancient, long dead people writing stuff, right?
Right, right.
The Iliad, the Odyssey, the Aeneid. What has reading those works taught you about literature? How's it contributed to your booktube journey, and especially because you're reading a mix of these books,
Mhm.
newest modern stuff and stuff from centuries ago. How have the classics contributed to your reading experience?
Oh man, I feel like it's enriched it so much. I feel like I almost have like an OCD compulsion with reading, trying to like take in the entire, history of literature in some sort of chronology. Because when you have like an understanding of Greek, of, the Theban plays and of Euripides and stuff, and then you go into The Secret History by Donna Tartt, you're going to have a drastically different reading experience than someone who reads The Secret History and has not read those works. And to pull in your own work, I won't say that I stated this first. It was Philip Chase actually, but there's a lot of parallels in a way to the Aeneid in Drowned Kingdom, because after the Trojan War, he's going to find this home for his people, and I see a lot of that in Othrun. And it's impossible to have a modern fantasy story that doesn't in some way harken back to the classics, even for authors who haven't read the classics, because they've read some contemporary work that was inspired by classics for that author. And it's just, it's never ending, the amount of parallels you can draw. And sometimes I overthink it. I'm like, oh, I can't read Moby Dick yet because I haven't read the Bible, but I do like to see references in modern literature, or even 20th century literature, and how it all ties back. Definitely a hobby of mine
Yeah,
that
well,
I
that
really get into.
and thank you for the kind words about drug. Because yes, I'm definitely, as you know, I'm clearly inspired by the classics, and in dialogue with the classics when I talk about when I was writing my series, and when I talk about the themes and the things that are, I believe, somewhat true to Plato, and Timaeus, and etc. Right, But I
Mhm.
mean, at the same time, I think the biggest thing is, and I think you've probably found through your reading of reading the classics and then reading modern stuff, is it's always that struggle, I think, to be inventive while paying homage, write your own story that doesn't feel that it's simply a copy, but yet in some cases, um, making it giving a fresh take on the
Mhm.
material. I think someone who does that better than anyone else is someone like Guy Gavriel Kay. Like he's essentially writing alternate history, but then he takes the guts of it and then gives you those twists and turns that are just,
Mhm.
they just make it feel so new, even though it's you're clearly reading the history of X, right?
Right.
So he does it. It's just phenomenal. But of course, his writing is so top shelf that
I need to check him out. I've only read the Silmarillion, which he worked with Christopher Tolkien on, but I wanted to start with the Fiona of Our Tapestry. That's another thing that like I really like to read authors' bibliographies in order when I can. So I'm like, everyone's like, just start with the Lions of Alrasan. I'm like, no, I need to start with the Fiona of Our Tapestry. And everyone tells me do not start with the Fiona of Our Tapestry. And I'm like, no, I'm starting with the Fiona of Our Tapestry.
well, kudos to you because that is his, as you said, that's his first work. And I still say I'd said this on a live with Philip because I had the privilege of Philip and Evan from Nerd Dollar Writer. They're doing a deep dive into all of his works.
Mhm.
They're reading all his works this year. They're deep dive with different guests, different people. I had the honor of being on them with the Finarver Tapestry because I had read it even before they had, so they invited me on for that one. And I gotta say it again. I think we all said it, the three of us during our deep dives, and like to write a book, the book's that good at that age. I think it was in his early 20s, and to be that at that level of an author is just like, oh, like just
Astounding. Absolute
yeah,
cinema.
yeah, like just, but yeah, another amazing author, right? I quickly
Mhm.
want to put up, hey, the wonderful Joe Arenas here. Hey, Joe, how's it going, buddy? Great
Hello.
author. Like someone who has been integral in, especially on the Canadian side, in um, in things like comic books. Historically, he's got just a wealth of knowledge. A wonderful gentleman. I have the privilege of meeting Joe in person and interviewing him as well. Check out that new Six Elemental interviews with Joe. You have a big slice of Canadiana there in terms of Joe's long experience in essentially the indie publishing scene. And another brilliant author, great person. Thanks for stopping by, my friend. Always good to see you.
Thank
And
you.
Max says, yeah, served as a guardsman in the Combat Sports Service Battalion in Troms, Norway. Wow.
Mm.
Power behind the punch. Huh? So Joe had also said, fantastic information in the interview, and said, well-read comic study and shows history that opens the eyes and makes me glad. Diversity is always best served by those who mirror it and learn from the echoes of time. Wow.
Mm. Profound.
Profound and well said. Joe is that kind of guy. A lot of knowledge, a lot of experience. I learn a lot from him in all our conversations. I've had the pleasure of going to Comic Cons in London, Ontario. That's where I first met Joe, and he has his table there with all his brilliant comics and games and all kinds of stuff. And of course, I have my book set up, so I've had some great conversations with Joe. He's a wonderful, wonderful fellow. So when it comes to that push and pull, you said that you would love to read the pantheon of great literary works, but yet of course you're compelled by modern works such as the Sun Eaters, etc.
Mm.
Right? Which again, you pick something like Sun Eater, which is definitely inspired by several other more classical works, including things like Book of the New Sun and Gene Wolfe, etc.
Mhm.
So, how do you balance or choose your TBR reading list? Do you try and split it somewhere down the middle, like 80s fantasy or classics versus new stuff? Like, is it more of a mood read thing? Like, how do you decide to how do you formulate your reading? Your reading.
I think, I mean, and this is probably not the best way to go about it if I were an individual who planned this sort of thing, but I think I just go all for one thing until not necessarily I get sick of it, but I'm like, okay, I've had my classics for a few months, and then I just hit comic books really hard, and then I hit modern fantasy really hard, and then right now I'm leaning more classics. I've been reading more of those. while still making my way through Drowned Kingdom and Wars of Light and Shadow. Wars of Light and Shadow, best series of all time. But
Yay!
um,
You anointed it. You anointed it, eh? Finally, okay.
yes.
All right.
It'd been running a close race with Realm of the Elderlings and Malazan for me. And when I finished Peril's Gate, I'm like, yeah, I just have to shout it from the rooftops. It's number one. Assuming it sticks the landing, but knowing Janny, it probably will.
Oh, it does. It does. Trust me.
Okay. I'm excited. But aside from Wars of Light and Shadow and Drowned Kingdom, I'd say lately I've been leaning more classics, and I'm sure that'll ebb and flow. And I'll get back into mainly, modern fantasy. Or I will say I'm never one to be like hot on the heels of the newest release. Even though sometimes I would like to be, like, even series where I'm like, I'm going to catch up, and then on day one I'm going to be there. I'm usually not there. Sun Eater was a rare one where I was like super excited for it, but then other series I was so excited to get caught up on Dresden Files, and then like the new book came out, and then I'm just off reading other stuff, and I'm like, I'll get to it when I get to it. But there's just so much. There's so much that I have not gotten to that I will never get to, that it's like I don't want to be bent out of whack about trying to cover the newest release just so I can have a video about it, because sometimes my interests are like lately I've been really wanting to get into Dostoevsky. That's something that's been really calling at me. I've only read Poor Folk, which everyone says is one of his worst books, and it blew me away. And I'm like, I gave it a 4 out of 5. I'm like, if this is his worst, then oh man, am I in for it.
Dostoevsky is an inspiration for me. He writes psychological grimdark in a way that the story you can call it historical, psychological, historical fiction. So however you'd like to qualify or quantify it, his work is a big inspiration for why I write about often the way I write him. He's one of those formational authors. So yeah, great knowledge and exploration of the human psyche and what makes human beings do the things that they do. Just absolutely fabulous in that aspect. So definitely read anything that he writes.
I read Death of Ivan Ilyak by Tolstoy, and I read Poor Folk by Dostoevsky, and it was kind of like my litmus test to see which of these big heads in Russian literature did I want to dive into. And no disrespect on Tolstoy, for me, Dostoevsky, the pathos in his work. I mean, Tolstoy, I know he does a lot of interesting stuff about examining class, but I think Dostoevsky, just like the way he writes about emotion, it won for me. I mean,
yeah, it's bingo. I'd have to agree. And I think what you will find is thing that George R. Martin says about the only thing worth writing about is the heart in conflict with itself, or something to that. I'm paraphrasing. Yeah, Dostoevsky is that's your writer for that, right? That's your author for that. So yeah, just fabulous. Mac also says, sorry, where did it go? Where did Mac go? There you go. I have the privilege of being asked to join Philip Chase. Yep. GGK discussion of Under Heaven. On my show, have not got to it. I've read about 6 of Guy Gavricade's novels. I'm about to get to Lines of All Resent. I haven't read them in reading order, but I can tell you, Zach, I think it's going to be a fave of yours whenever you ever get to GGK. Just no one writes melancholy the way he does, and again, his essentially alternate fiction, the way he does it, it's just beautiful. It's accessible, yet it's just poetic, and just GGK. And he's Canadian, by the way. Go Canada! Just
let's go. Representation for you guys.
Yeah, he's one of those great writers. A lot of people don't know Canadian, but it's just iconic, right? What does? Oh, he says sometime this autumn. Yeah, sometime this autumn. And I think Mac also, he's gotten, in terms of Sun Eater, A Shadows Upon Time left to read. So that's awesome. And he's currently wrapping up Lost Burgundy by Mary Gentle for alternate historical military fiction. Okay. And Mac usually has a few things on the go. Just started The Bull from the Sea, Marino, 50s historical fiction retelling of Theseus. Oh, that sounds right up your alley, Zach.
That sounds fun. That sounds like a lot of fun.
That sounds right up your alley. just read
Brothers K, to me, I think I need to read more Dostoevsky before I dive in. I've heard that's his, that's the white whale of it all. That's the one you need to come in prepared. So that's the dragon at the end of the journey for me.
But this next comment by another wonderful booktuber. Hey, thanks so much, Jared, for coming up. Welcome, Jared the Fantasy Thinker.
What's brilliant
booktuber. Wonderful gentleman. Check out his content. I've had the honor of talking to Jared in the past. Also, I'm doing reviews on my books, and I'm very humbled. He loves the Dragon Kingdom saga. I'm very honored. Crime and Punishment. Zach, that book lived rent free in my head for quite a while when I was younger, in university, reading that. So just you have lots of great stuff ahead.
I'm excited for the journey. And I saw on your recent live with Jake, I believe Jared's a writer too, right? Did y'all mention that in the video? I actually did not know that.
He keeps on a DL, but yeah, check out his backlist. Jared is a fascinating guy. Also been in the military. Watch my 6 Elementals with Jared. He's got a lot of depth to this fella that you wouldn't otherwise know. He's so unassuming and humble. Obviously very smart, but Jared's the man. Like check out Jared's stuff. Oh, and there is my dear friend and colleague, the wonderful, amazing Taylor from A Between the Pages. Hello, my friend. Always a pleasure to see you. Thanks for stopping by in the chat quickly. Taylor, as you know, we are part of the Page Chewing umbrella. We've been taking a bit of a hiatus on and off over the last little while, but it's such an honor to be Taylor's friend and interviewer. She's one of the best interviewers out there, I think, that you're going to find in the booktube space. Check out her channel. Her vlogs are amazing. Her vlogs, especially of she formerly lived in Japan. Check out her vlogs about Japanese life and all that. She's got just great content. So absolutely amazing. She says she hasn't picked up any GGK yet, but Taylor, GGK is like, he's one of the
goals. Those sentiments completely. Haven't picked it up yet, but I'm pretty sure it's like Tad Williams. Like, I know I'm gonna love it. I just haven't found time to dive in yet.
Yeah, just another iconic, like Janny, just iconic. One of your favorite fantasy author's favorite fantasy author kind of thing, right?
Right.
So a lot of fantasy authors that are considered popular today. Tad Williams was their inspiration and their favorite when they were coming up, right? So, and Max says, yeah, the Canadian was GGK Erickson, I believe, went to the same high school. Yep. Also, yeah, R. Scott Baker. I'm currently reading R. Scott Baker. I read the first book that Artist Comes Before. I'm reading the second. I'm reading the second book now. I don't even know what to say. Like, I think on the prose scale, Shaye maybe top 10 on the prose scale of modern stuff. That's saying a lot. Top 10. Dark as
That's my main concern. I think it might be too dark for my liking, from what I've heard about it. And I've read some dark stuff.
How do you feel about grimdark? How do you feel about dark fantasy? So, for example, don't know if you read Michael R. Fletcher. You've read some of his stuff. Yeah,
I've read the 3 of his main dark trilogies. I've read The Obsidian Path. I've read Manifest Illusions plus the spin-off book. I've read Cities of Sacrifice. I've read his Millennial Manifesto and his Ghosts of Tomorrow book. Like I said, like whenever I find an author I like, I'm like, okay, their whole bibliography, let's go. And then I read it in publication order, which is what I was doing for Michael R. Fletcher for a little bit. But then I got a little grimdarked out. Not that his writing isn't great, but I'm not the... I like Michael R. Fletcher's stuff because it's able to put a comedic edge on the grimdark aspects. He does a similar thing to Abercrombie, but Abercrombie, to me, even though I really loved his latest trilogy, a lot of it with how the characters don't shift over time. Like they go through a faux arc. Like you think they're going to go on an arc, and then they turn out to be just as dastardly as you left them on page 1. And that's not all of his characters, but it's a lot of his characters. And when grimdark takes that approach, that's when I start to feel kind of jaded, when I don't feel like growth is occurring and I don't feel like change is happening for these characters. It can kind of just make it feel doom and gloom to me, even though I will always read Abercrombie stuff and I do enjoy him as an author. I don't know. I'd say grimdark. I can enjoy grimdark when we center on a character that is going through change. Like Oathruin is a character that is not, the most likable, but much like, and this is a very dark, much more extreme example, but like Jorg Ancraft from Broken Empire, it is even though Jorg is despicable, everyone talks about how terrible of a character he is. I enjoyed that series because his trajectory is a positive one. He is getting better, and then he does terrible things, and then he gets better again. And then and Othrin's the same way, though he's way less dastardly than Jorg. He goes through, I think the line graph, and I remember you said this at one point about Othrin, and I would agree. Like, it doesn't just look like this. It's like boom, 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 boom. But I would say overall, if you take a bird's eye view out and you can scan out, it is a positive trajectory. He is improving as a person, and then he does some terrible things, says some really messed up stuff, and then he course corrects, and then and I don't mind darker stories when it feels like there is a purpose to the darkness. But when something's like doom and gloom a ton, it can kind of jade on me a little bit. Like even the Berserk manga, which I know a lot of people love, like sometimes there's so much darkness and depravity that I'm just like, okay, I'm going to put this away for a little bit.
Well, and I totally agree. I think I feel almost the exact same way with you about grimdark. And I mean, what I write is someone coined the phrase psychological grimdark in terms of my stuff, and I'd have to agree it's more on that end because it's the darkness of the human spirit, right?
Right.
I think what you'll find if you read Baker is that his writing is some of the best out there. Like I said, he is extremely philosophical, so a lot of his writing is almost like a lot of his is a philosophical musings about the state of life, especially free will and things like that. And I have to admit, a lot of it, I mean, most people would say that the view is rather nihilistic. However, I think it's so beautifully written, and it has all those other features of amazing fantasy books, like the action scenes, like the political intrigue, like that you can't look away. But sometimes you're like, oh my god, what am I reading? I described it one day. It's like this book was so amazing, but I felt like I had to take a shower after. It was just there was a bit of a slime left from some of the stuff I read that lived rent free in my head, but I couldn't stop reading it, and I still can't. And I think I'm probably going to do the whole immersive go all the way through. I have all of the books except one in the 7-book Second Apocalypse, and I'm on the second one now. I might just go for broke. I'm on vacation right now, so I might go for broke and try and get her
Crank it
done.
out.
Yeah, so we'll see. Just to get another series under my belt, but
Would you say is it in contention for one of the darkest things you've ever read?
oh, absolutely. People say so. I don't know if you remember. So Mark Lawrence, I think it was a blog, and you're gonna have to correct me, fans out there. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think Mark Lawrence did a poll or blog on the darkest fantasy out there. Michael R. Fletcher's Manifest Delusion. I think the first book was number one, and I think Baker was number two for Darkest Week before. I personally rate Baker's darker than Michael R. Fletcher. I think his stuff is just some of the stuff at the content is just like, oh my god, like yikes. So, but again, beautiful, well written, and that's so just incredible. I want to quickly put up from Joe Tamzal's crucible tampering with what measures are applied to engage into what activities we desire to do. Still pointing with Paul's books. Thank you, my friend. Digesting each section repeatedly. I'm honored. Thank you about that. Thank you, sir. I do want to get into. Joe's got a great question I want to get to soon, but I do want to talk a bit about the fact that you're one of your favorite authors and my favorite author. Now your favorite series, Janny Wurts.
Yes.
So you become close to Janny, like a lot of us. She is an amazing person and an iconic author, probably one of the best living fantasy authors out there. And through this now meshing your life with booktube and all things bookish, you came to narrate the audiobook for one of her stories, The Gallant. Can you talk a bit about that and how that came to being? And I gotta say, this was like, oh, it was a silky smooth sound of Zachary Shaye. Like I was like, wow, he really like next level. Like I didn't realize until I listened to that. And then one time you actually and I'm so grateful again, you put a video about why you should read the Drowned Kingdom saga, and you were reading an extra from my book. It's like, wow, this guy is Mr. Shaye's a master of the tonal stuff, and like, Wow, he really brings it, man. Like, amazing job, my friend. So, but
Oh,
how did that all
thank you.
happen?
So my first YouTube video was a review of Curse of the Mistwraith, and funnily enough, so at that point, the only people I knew on BookTube were it was just Jake from Nerd Level Rising. He watched one of my videos when I had like 60 subscribers, and we became friends. And at this point, I think I had maybe 100 subscribers. And Janny Wurts got my email from Jake, and she loved the way I read one of the segments from Curse of the Mistwraith, and was like, have you read? I have this novella called The Gallant. Would you like to do an audio production on it? At this point, I already read The Gallant. Like, The Gallant was my favorite. I read it, and I was like, this is my favorite novella of all time. And then she asked me, she's like, "Oh, well, I wrote this novella, The Gallant." It's like I know what The Gallant, like, like at that point, it was already a huge fave of mine, and it was like one of those like moments where I just like I remember I was in my bedroom because I didn't even know if I wanted to put the sound bites from the book into my videos at that point. Like I was thinking about cutting them all the time. Like, is it just too much? Do people not want to hear my voice? They just want to hear my opinions on the book. Maybe I should cut that out. And then I guess, I put it in there for a reason because, Janny was like, "Do you want to do The Gallant?" And it was an immediate yes. But before I could even type out yes, I remember I was in my bedroom and I just like fell to my knees and was like, "This is insane." And this is before my channel kind of blew up. I won't say like blew up, but like before I have the following I do now. It was very small time. And the fact that she even knew who I was and wanted me to do audio production of her novella, I was just completely shocked. And I bought the equipment the next day. I went out, I got all the stuff, because before I was just using my little mic that I used for my videos, but then I got, a condenser mic in a soundproofed room, and all the stuff, all the bells and whistles. And because I'm like, if your favorite living fantasy author asks you to do a thing, you can't half-ass it. You have to fully send it. So that was crazy. That's still probably the biggest honor I've had in my booktube journey, more than having a bigger following, more than having a video hit however many thousand views. That was the biggest, and still is the biggest thing that's happened to me since I started this journey. So I'm very proud of it.
You came correct, brother. It was fabulous. What a fabulous performance. I think people, other audiobook narrators, obviously, and authors and certain people in the industry, but a lot of people don't understand how challenging it is to really get that right. The amount of takes that potentially, like, to get the inflections and the tones, and to narrate the different characters, and to understand, how they should sound based on their age and their upbringing and their, social class and their. It's just like you nailed it. It was just fabulous.
Each chapter honestly probably took at least 4 recordings before I was like, okay, this is enough to work with. And even then I'd have to go back and re-record stuff. And then also January, like the novella of The Gallant is probably a good place to start, because there's not that many perspectives and it can be easier juggling those voices, but it's still a Janny Wurts novel. So pretty much every other sentence, I'm like, this is a word that I only kind of understood through context clues, but I actually don't know what this word means. And, like, just as a reader reading through Janny's very, dense and imaginative vocabulary, you can look at a sentence and know what that word means to a degree. But I feel like when you're recording an audiobook, you need to know exactly what it means. You can't just be using context clues. And there's a lot of pronunciation I got wrong, and, but it was so much fun.
Yeah, but master performance, and you're so right. I mean, Janny, of course, no one does adjectives like Janny, whereas no one writes like her. It is, and again, she will have you, even people like myself who pride myself on having a reasonably decent vocabulary, she would have me scrambling for the dictionary and the thesaurus when I was reading her book. And that's a feat. There's very few writers that, not boasting, but there's very few writers that can do that to me, and she's one of them. So, one of the reasons, hence why she's my favorite author. But again, Zachary, just a masterful performance. Like, and for your first one, I was like, wow, man, you knocked it out of the park, brother. So, like, that's it's just incredible. I do want to skip down to Joe. I had a couple questions, but I don't want to skip to this one. I'm not sure if he's talking about audiobooks for Janny or you, but I want to ask a question. I'm just going to pretend that this question's about you, Zachary Shaye, doing more audiobooks in the future, if you can disclose like what you can talk about. Just is that something that you plan to to keep on doing? Because, like I said, you're a natural, man.
Maybe one day when nursing school's done, I have another year left in my degree program, but it's just so arduous when school's going on. Each semester I'm like, "Oh, well if I find time to do booktube stuff, I'll do that too." Or and it's just I mean, it's very much there are stereotypes about nursing schools that they're kind of like eat your young, and like they put you through it. Like I have a 40 student cohort, and like 20 of them failed out of our first semester. I think the exact number was 16. And it's like, I mean, it's like it's a crazy fail rate. And that really puts the fear of God in you. And I'm like, as much as I want to reach for a book or reach for the camera and do stuff like that, like as far as the audiobook thing goes, like whenever I was doing the Gallant, and that's a really small page count, it's a novella, that took me like 2 months, 6 weeks. I don't know, because every day I would just spend some time in the booth and then spend time editing it and then spend time in the booth. And I think a big part of why it was so time consuming was because I was so new to it. But I don't even think I want to open that. I still have all my equipment for the day it ever comes, but I think it'd have to be post graduation, which I only have a year left. So,
Well, fabulous. Well, all I can say is that I think you have, of your many, many talents, Mr. Shaye, you have a burgeoning potential career as an audiobook narrator in your future. If that's a road you ever decide to go down, I'm sure you would be fabulous in that field if it was like, So, but like I said, you did an amazing job. And yeah, The Gallant is also my favorite novella. Currently, it's a showcase of all of the best things about reading Janny Wurts, including the poignancy and the heartbreak, absolute heartbreak, but yet light of her work. So now, quickly, I want to get back to this question from Joe. He says, "How do both of you feel about classic fantasy of Howard, Burroughs, Tolkien? Can see their influences in today's new works." I'll let you answer first, Zach, if that's okay.
So I've not read Burroughs. I'm assuming this is Robert E. Howard, right?
Yeah, yeah,
The
Conan.
Sumerian stuff. I haven't read any of his Solomon Kane, any of that stuff. I've only read Coming of Conan the Sumerian, which is like, I believe it's either Tor or Orbit. I think it's Tor, bind up. I've read that and I really enjoyed it. I was surprised by the depth of character of Conan. When you think of Conan the Barbarian, you just think of like, a mindless barbarian running around, running amok. And it was great reading that because I recently last year I read Master of White Storm by Janny Wurts, and you could see a lot of the sword and sorcery influence that Howard had, even though, in my opinion, Wurts did it better. I think Wurts does most things better than most people, but that was the progenitor of the type of story that Janny was sinking her teeth into with Master of White Storm, that sort of sword and sorcery type story. And then Tolkien, I'm just the biggest, most massive Tolkien fan. I've got Funko Pops, my Aragorn figure right there. I love Tolkien. I'm wearing a Tolkien shirt right now.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, Burroughs, Tarzan,
okay.
Howard with Conan, of course, Tolkien. I think one thing I will say, and that's an excellent question, by the way, Joe, is that when I look at writers such as Erickson, and Erickson we've talked about a lot, another one of both our favorite authors for Shaye and myself, Carson Orlong. I'm sure that Erickson, especially given his age and kind of the era in which he would have been reading, formative reading, I'm sure he read Conan and that Carson Orlong, there was some influence there.
For sure.
And Carson Orlong, much more complex character, obviously. Carson Orlong, much more fleshed out in terms of the character itself, and of course over a much bigger work. I mean, Malazan Book of the Fall is this beast, right? And I'm like, I haven't even read the rest of the. I've only read. I think I've read the first book of Witness. I haven't read any E&C Elsamont, so I still have a lot to read. So Carson Orlong may pop up in some of the other works as well, but and certainly in the Witness trilogy, his influence is there, even though he hasn't made an appearance as of yet there. But like I think the influence of those authors and others definitely percolate down into writing all of those who follow, for sure. So, but that's an excellent question. Max talking here, Zach, about Baker, Second Apocalypse, very inspired by the Crusades. Yes. Tolkien, Dune. Yes. The Iliad, Hindu. Yep. You're going to see all that in that. And he also comments, influenced by Nietzschean philosophy, especially mass morality of antiquity, was claimed part of the slave morality of Christianity. Yep. And he says, all's very confident that Ack himself was a John Carr's-inspired protagonist in a fantasy world. He's speaking of Acamian, a sorcerer in Baker's work. Yeah, I don't want to spoil it for you, Mr. Zachary Shaye, but yeah, all I can do is, in that pantheon of great writers, along with the Jannys and the Steve Records, I think you got to make room for GGK and Baker. Those are two that, if I can say, I'm going to drop some other things and maybe check these things out. Those.
I will say just tonally, I'm going to be transparent here. Tonally with Baker, from what I've heard, has made me push him a little bit further than like GGK, Tad Williams, and Ursula Le Guin are like three that I'm like, I need to get to today. Like the sooner I get to them, I will. Baker, just off of the high regard that everyone holds him up, he's probably number 4 right there of the three that I can name off the top of my head. But I think tonally Le Guin and Williams will be a little bit more up my alley, but I have no doubt that I will immensely respect what Baker has done with his work.
I agree. You're gonna love Williams, and to my shame, I haven't read Le Guin. She's one of my next year priorities. Obviously heard nothing but great things. Philip Chase is a huge fan, very foundational for him. But yeah. So in terms of you being an audio narrator, my friend, not surprised that you have a great voice for that. So yeah, and Jared says, "Yep, awesome job doing that." Says Zachary, spent my first attempt to read the first one of my books during last day's challenging. Yeah, and like I said, hey, that's an excellent point, Joe. It is a skill, and it's something that people you're acting as well, right? And that's something that obviously you have a talent in as well, Shay. But it's like it's not just reading. Like every time someone asks me to reading for my book, I fumble over, and it's just a sentence. I fumble over it, like you said. I need 50 takes. I feel like I'm sounding wooden and monotone, and I'm not.
I thought your reading you did from book 1 was really good. I listened to that before I bought the book. I remember.
Oh, thanks. I thought it was horrible, but thank you for that. Like I just know that it's a skill to be an audio narrator. So again, hats off to you, Mr. Shaye, for doing it so well. And Vaughn, another great author who I had the privilege of speaking to earlier on a great checkout. Vaughn, Sienna Frost, and Ella Stevens, 3 brilliant, astounding indie authors. We had a live this morning on the joys of writing unlikable characters. Check that one out.
Oh man, and Valdan is super unlikable. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Vaughn.
But also
very interesting character to follow. Valdan is a very nuanced character, and Vaughn was. Oh, I'm so grateful for this because when he sent me that audiobook, he was looking for reviewers and stuff. And at this point, I had maybe like 10 subscribers. And I was like, I would like a Severing Sun, please. And, he was very overjoyed that someone expressed interest in, reading Severing Sun. And he also sent me books 2 and 3 physical. Because at the point where I asked for the audiobook of book 1, I already had the physical. He sent me Bold Ascension and Destiny's Doom books 2 and 3, which I have since read and added to the shelves. And brilliant writer. Love you, Vaughn. Thank you so much. Very appreciative.
Yeah, you're right. One of the best indie authors out there. His trilogy will definitely be, when I reformulate my list of my favorite indie science fiction and fantasy series of all time, Southern Nation is definitely on the list. Definitely in the top 5 without question. It's gonna.
He lands the ending so well in Destiny's Doom, and lands it in a way to where you can tell there's so much being set up for the next trilogy, but in a way that is very satisfying as a conclusion. Like, okay, this is no shot at any author, but Morning Star from the Red Rising saga, so many people say, oh, it's such a good ending, but it leaves so many loose threads that don't even feel like they're leading to something. They just feel like, and I will say the follow-up series, Pierce Brown really does an amazing job of carrying on these elements and making it feel like a cohesive story, but like, it doesn't feel like a good cap on the series to me. It doesn't, like, if book 4, 5, 6 never happened, I would not have felt satisfied with that end of the first trilogy. Whereas Destiny's Doom, while setting up all these elements, it does feel like thematically we've reached an ending with the journey these characters have been going on, which I think is a very hard line to walk in terms of like it's an ending and a setup. He just did it so well.
I totally concur. Vaughn, great author, amazing person, the kind of person he is, obviously, to send you those books. That's the kind of person he is, just a warm human being, a great gentleman. I call him
Sweetheart.
a gentleman, right? Just a sweet, and also a brilliant author. And yes, it is hard, landing. Believe me, I'm feeling the pressure of writing the seventh and concluding book in the John King saga, and hoping that I can do as good a job as someone like Vaughn did with Destiny's Doom and finishing Sunder Nation. So, the pressure is the struggle's real, but Vaughn did nail the landing, and he did such a fabulous job of it. So, he said, what else he say here? He said, "All's Blown Away by Shaye's excerpt readings in his review." Yeah, you're really good at that stuff, my friend. Yeah, really good. And of course, so then the audiobook stuff is no surprise. Just says audible characterization is a morphing animal, but we'll be doing more. Good for you. And as husband of retired nurse, artist has challenges, just giving you some props as well, Mr. Shaye, for the nursing field. And again, hats off to you for getting into that sort of profession. Said, well, my brothers from other mothers. Yeah. Well, that's what this community does, my friend. Lots of like-minded and wonderful people that you're going to meet and be introduced to. Max says, it's something about Howard Conan that the first time you meet him in the Phoenix Authority, he's already king, sitting at his desk, correcting map based on his own experience. And I love that retrospect, looking back type of setting narrative when narratives are framed that way. I think that's also a wonderful way. And but you have to do it right though, because obviously it can potentially take the tension out, knowing that the character makes it to this point, and that clearly any life-threatening situations they were in before, clearly they made this, but it's about how they got there, right? So, that's an excellent point, Mac. I thought it was awesome. How do you find, Shaye, about those types of narratives where, okay, like I've heard, no big spoiler, for example, Sun Eater, where, the character's at a certain point in his life when the series starts, and everything's about what came before, right?
Right.
Like, how do you feel about those types of
Oh, I
narratives?
love framing narratives. Everything from the Odyssey on, a big part of that. I think he's on Calliope's Island and he's recounting much of the Odyssey. And then, the story goes beyond that. Name of the Wind was a big one whenever I believe I started Name of the Wind when I was 13. And that was the first time I'd seen a framing narrative like that. And I was like, what? The real stories before? But I know a lot of people argue like, well, now I know because Othrun's telling me the story, he's not going to die. I know because Hadrian's telling me the story, he's not going to die, at least in terms of like before he's writing the story down. But it's like, I don't really like, you can watch The Hangover, that those guys aren't going to die. Like not every story is about whether or not the protagonist makes it or not. And even then, you have some stories where the characters recounting it and they don't make it. And there's some intentional stuff. I don't want to name series because that's spoilery, but I think that there's a lot more. If the only thing keeping you reading is whether or not a character dies or not, I don't think that the story is that compelling. Like regardless of where the character, you could tell me where the character ends up and how things are going to go and still write a very compelling story if you're a gifted writer. Like you can know where it ends and still make the journey a page turner and something to be excited about. So I guess I'm not the most spoiler sensitive person. And I also don't think, knowing that a character makes it through a story in any way inhibits my enjoyment of this. And maybe if you're talking about something like The Walking Dead, where a big thing keeping people coming back week to week is like, who's going to make it? But like in a very like character focused story, like I would assume Hadrian from Sun Eater would not die 3 books in, like it doesn't bother me that I know he makes it to the end.
Yeah, I agree. I feel exactly the same way. But that's an excellent point, Mac, that you raised about framing narratives. And and for me, I agree. It doesn't detract from me whatsoever. Because again, you can have a final book where but then the characters made it through 6 books. They recount the story, and they don't, and then they die by the middle of the 7th. Like it doesn't. So I totally agree. And Jared also says, Erickson wrote a great essay on Carson Conan and differences and similarities. So I think that'd be interesting to read. I'm going to check that out, Jared. Thanks for highlighting that. I'm going to check that out. And then Max says, Vaughn, can't wait for Shaye and Professor Chase's discussion of Destiny's Doom. Oh, so it's gonna be Destiny's Doom chat. Is that right?
I think we talked about it a long time ago. I haven't touched base with him on it in a hot minute. I believe he just picked up Destiny's Doom, or I think I saw that on a weeks that were. So I should probably message him and see what's up with that. But yeah, I just haven't been as communicative lately post nursing school. But we did talk about that, having a Destiny's Doom discussion.
Well, I would love to watch that. As you know, a big fan of Vaughn's work, and I think Destiny's Doom was marvelous
Mm.
as a capper to the series. So Vaughn
And my
truly,
favorite cover of his for sure. I love the cover of Destiny's
oh, his
Doom.
covers are stunning, absolutely stunning. Yeah,
Wrap
yeah,
around too. Oh man, so
yeah,
good,
yeah,
marvelous.
stunning. Yeah,
Speaking of marvelous covers, Black Dragon on Red. Oh, that's my favorite cover of your series by far. Not that the rest aren't great, but like Black Dragon on Red, the second I saw it, I was like, oh man,
Well, thank you, my friend.
amazing.
That has special meaning to me. I mentioned that on the cover reveal with the wonderful Blaze Ancona from Under the Radar Books, another person who's done so much to promote my series. Just a wonderful blogger and a very popular, well respected blogger. I mentioned it there that my dearly departed father-in-law, who I loved dearly, I hope he's watching from somewhere out there.
Mhm.
He was a fabulous artist, and he did this carving. And I posted on Instagram what the actual carving looked like and compared it to the cover of the book. That it was based completely on that carving. It's almost a complete facsimile, except for you got a few things. But it's so funny that he did that carving years ago before I even met him. Before I ever met and married his wonderful daughter. And one day, Deb and I are sitting there, look at the carving, and we're like that's of this person killing a dragon. Like, I mean, it fits perfectly into the themes of like, and I'm just like, how can we be staring at this thing for all these years and not even so? Then then it was a done deal. It's like that's first we thought Deb's like, oh, maybe put that as part of the artwork or in a special edition. Like, no, that's got to be the cover, and we're like,
Yeah.
yep, that's the cover, and hence it is. So that is clearly my favorite cover as well, and a lot of personal meaning there naturally. So I hope the book lives up to when you get there, Zach. Hope it lives up to the cover. Hope it did justice because that cover means a lot to me. So, from my father-in-law Bill, who was a brilliant artist. Joe, Paul, you don't have a face for radio, but I noticed the tonality and structure of both your voice and that Zachary's ever. That's thank you very
Rhythmic
kind.
prowess.
That's Mr. Shaye. He's got the rhythmic prowess in his voice. Like I said, when you listen to him narrate the audiobook and you listen to snippets that he posts from books on his videos, just yeah, he's got the voice. He's got that killer voice. So uh Vaughn says, "Oh, Fitz Farsi's Evergraphs are a spoiler." Yeah, yeah. I quickly, and I know you're a big Hop fan, Mr. Shea.
Massive, massive.
I have only read the first two books of Life Ships. Love them. I have to read the
Mhm.
third one. I lent it. I got to get it back. Got it so I can finish off the trilogy.
You
'Cause I read
must.
the first few. I was when I start reading a series like back to back. I read book one, and I was like, "Yep." And I read book two, "Yep." And but then I didn't have book three was on the shelf at the moment. I would have read it, so I would have finished off the trilogy right there.
Mhm.
Um, she does character depth analysis the way I like. She does
Mhm.
it the way I think I know a lot of people would say, "Oh, well, it's so like it's not too much for me." I know a lot of
Right.
people would find it too much. They'd find some of the exposition too much.
Fitz is
But
my favorite fictional character, like ever.
wow,
Yeah, that's my
really,
favorite fictional character. Yeah.
wow,
Um, I think Arathon and Hadrian, especially in the past year, because a lot of my Sun Eater and Janny reading has been recent. They're giving him a run for his money, but her character, Fitz Chivalry Farseer, is my favorite fictional character of all time. I have a tattoo of the Fool. This is the
oh
Fool
man,
from her realm of the Elderlings, which I just thought he'd be like more colorful and fun as a tattoo than Fitz. But Fitz is like my favorite fictional character.
that's high praise, man. That's high praise. I haven't gotten there yet. I haven't got to the the all those other series.
Mhm.
Realm of the Elderlings is a beast, obviously, and
Right.
I will get to the whole series eventually. Like I said, just trying to get live ships done, and then maybe
Mhm.
maybe next year I can tackle that. I really want to finish Baker, maybe
Right.
this year if I can, and also. maybe, just maybe squeeze in the rest of GGK's books. That's a tall order in itself because I got a lot of other arcs and all kinds of books I have to read,
Mhm.
but we'll see. But I've been having a great reading year. I've been very intentional right now. I know, Zach, you said because of nursery school, obviously you've had to, be very strategic and cut back a bit.
Right.
I'm in a different stage where, close to retirement and, empty nester. And, so now other than my writing, which takes up a lot of my spare time, I got time to read. But yeah, I will get back to Hob for sure. So,
I'm a
and then,
hobgoblin. I love Robin Hobb.
well, maybe we'll get to chat to you someday about some of our stuff. I'd love to discuss it with you. So, and Tips 100% agree. This is about framing narratives, I assume. I plus I find it interesting actually trying to figure out how these characters are going to get out of pickles they find themselves in. Yeah, yeah. I think Odysseus is kind of one of the perfect example because he is that master strategist, that always finds a way to wiggle out of stuff. I
Right,
think that's
right.
one of my favorite aspects of him as a character.
Mhm.
So and says, "What are you guys appearing next? Where are you guys as authors?" I think he's talking about, which we haven't even got to, Joe. So that was my later questions, but thank you for prompting me. We haven't got there. So before we dial back to that, let's talk about Zachary Shaye, the author, the
Oh.
writer. You, my friend, I have not, obviously, I don't believe it is published yet, but
Mhm.
you are planning to write and correct me if I'm wrong, fantasy horror milieu or fantasy dark.
Fantasy horror steampunk standalone kind of weird thing that I worked on. That was a uh making the channel and writing the book were the two big things that I focused on during my gap semester. Like I was like, no matter what, record a video today, no matter what, write 2,000 words. And over the course of like revising it, I'm like, maybe that 2,000 words for a brand new author, maybe setting that goal definitely sacrificed some of the prose. So right now it's kind of like the book of Theseus because I have like some chapters that are on the 8th draft, and then I have some chapters that are on the first draft. But it's finished technically, like it's like the rough draft is finished, but the revisions are like I said, like I think chapter 1 is on like its 8th or ninth rendition, and then like the first 10 or so chapters are like more polished than the rest. Not to say that they're polished, but like the rest of it, it's like I'm too scared to even look at it most days. But I think I'm gonna, much like the audiobook ventures, I'm gonna save that until nursing school's done. I've tried to get into it this summer, but I'm also trying to blast my way through Wars of Light and Shadow. Not blast my way through, but I'm trying to make my way through. I'm on Trader's Not right now, but it's especially hard stopping and coming back after the nursing program. And I know I only have till August to make progress on it. And then it's going to be back to the nursing grind. So I'm like, I don't know, maybe I should just take the summer to enjoy it and then focus on my writing when I have the time for it.
Yeah, yeah, no, I totally understand. But just know that when I found out you were writing a book, I'm like, oh, because first I thought it was out. When your channel first came out, I first started following you, I was like, oh, because you were talking about it, I was like, oh, well, maybe it's out already. Maybe I missed the video because you can't keep up on every of it. Maybe he published it already. So then I kept looking through Goodreads. So I was like, and then people were saying, no, it's not out yet. I think it was Jake. No, it's not out yet. It's coming. But
So that's my cover I had done.
oh man, that is awesome. And that is on your is it your channel logo or like I
Yes.
saw first saw it there like that is awesome. Like I just can't wait to read it. I know it's gonna be brilliant. Knowing how smart you are, knowing
Well,
how
thank
much
you.
you know about literature, I know it's gonna be great. So I just absolutely cannot wait to read it when it
I
comes out.
appreciate that so much.
I know you're cooking it. I know you're getting it just right, perfection, but
Right.
I cannot wait to read it when it comes out.
I was talking to Jake about it, and Jake has a much bigger platform than myself, but I was like, having these platforms, it is a jumping on point. It is a privilege to have a platform and to be a part of the community. So when you do publish a book, it is, like people are going to check it out because they know you and they want to support you. But I was telling Jake, I'm like, but you really only have one chance to make an impression as an author. Like, you're really only like that goodwill of like, oh, we know Zachary Shaye, we know Jake, we know them, and we want to support what they do. You only have a chance to wow them with your first book once. So I think that's why I'm very, very much, agonizing over each chapter. And yeah, that's just kind of where I'm at right now. I'm just like I know the community's great, but I'm just like, I need it to be right.
And I so respect and admire you for wanting to perfect the craft and make it the best you can be. And you're absolutely right. And I'm not one to give advice there, but of course, as you know, as an author, my thing is always, there will come a point where you'll feel it's ready, but you'll never feel that necessarily it's ready enough, but just that it's ready. It's time. But you also have to give yourself the grace that we talked about Guy Gavriel. You name the author. I include myself. I mean, and it's all subjective, of course, but very few authors would look at their first book as their best, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to improve. You're going to keep getting better. You can start off brilliant with the best book ever, but you're only going to get better from there. So also realize with confidence that your writing is going to improve, right, as you polish the craft. So, there's that sweet spot between perfecting it to the point where, yep, this is something I'm proud of this. It's polished. It's a finished kind of product, and I could keep refining it, but then at the same time, it's good enough, right? It's that balance, right? So, but I think I say to people, you just know when. You just know. Like it's not just about what your editor says. If you have a professional editor, it's not just about your beta read. Like you internally just know it's good. It's time to publish. Hit the button.
Right.
You'll know. You'll know when it happens. But like I said, I can't wait. I know it's going to be absolutely spectacular. Quickly for me, that question, Joe, in terms of appearances, I think my next one is London Comic Con in London, Ontario. That's in September. That's the next time I'm going to be. So I'll see you there. Hopefully, I'm sure you're going to be there, Joe. I'll see you in London in the fall. I'm not doing it. I did Niagara Comic Con, did a couple of book signings. I may do another Indigo Chapters book signing in the future, but before London. But that's my next. I got to buckle down and get this book 7 done. That's my main.
Still it's coming.
Yeah, it's about, it's, I'd say overall, including drafts, like, I don't want to talk, like, it's about 60% done. So.
Okay.
Yeah, it's about 60% done. So, it's on track for 2027. Let's put it that way. I was only confident in that year. I don't like to nail down the month until I get closer and I know how ready it is. But, for those who are planning to invest and were waiting to see if I would finish the series, and then saw I was publishing a book, and you're like, oh, I guess he's going to finish. And we're like, okay, I'm going to check it out now, and I want to be caught up. For those of you who actually care, who care about being caught up by the time the next release comes out, I suggest you start reading now if you haven't started.
I said earlier in our conversation where I said I'm not a big release day reader, me and the other Drowned Kings are in accord that, like, no matter what, we're going to be caught up when Sure still releases. So we're all really excited for that. Me and Jake are starting Lion's Pride really soon. Knowing Jake, he's probably already started it. But yeah, that's one that I am dead set on first day release. And it's so impressive how you've been able to crank them out pretty much every single year. And from what I have found, I gave Drowned Kingdom a 5 out of 5 stars. There were some things that didn't work absolutely perfect for me, but I don't always think like a book needs to be perfect to have 5 stars. It's all about my subjective enjoyment. And I thought it was such a strong debut novel, but like the amount that it has improved from book to book, like Lord and King to me is where it was like cemented as like, okay, like whenever I remake my favorite fantasy series list, Lord and King is the one where it's like, I think the series is going to be on my list of favorite series. Just because of how differently structured you chose to go with that book. Like Last of the Atlanteans, it's about where I expected the story to go from Drowned Kingdom. But Lord and King, you made the decision to really slow it down and show the rulership of Othrun and to show what he's going through as a husband, as a man, as a cousin, as a leader, as a believer in this one faith. And, in my head, I'm like, okay, and then now we're going to go on to this other threat that's right here. And you didn't do that. You set up threats and things happen. Like, it's not, there are plots developing. There's political machinations. There's assassination attempts. But it's just, the way it really did a character study on Othrune in that third book just really cemented it as a new fave of mine.
Well, I'm so incredibly humble you say that. Shaye, I'm just incredibly humbled. Thank you. That's all I can say. Uh, each book is its own thing. I think David from Four Corners of the Page mentioned that so far he's felt that way. I think you can expect definitely every book in the Dragon King saga is their own beast. So
Okay.
I hope you're ready for Alliance Pride. It's where a lot of things start getting revealed slowly. The curtain is slowly getting pulled back, and I hope you like what you see when you start to see a bit of it, just a bit.
I'm positive I will. You haven't let me down yet, so I'm pretty confident that that's gonna be great.
Thank you. Max Garfield said, speaking of classics, tell you historical fiction, I would definitely consider us. Oh, Salambo. Yep, I've heard of that one by Gustav Colbert. Yep. 1862, your SSS story. We'll have to check that out. Anytime Matt gives you a rec, just put it on your TBR, people.
There's so many though. He has a bottomless pit of them. They're
but just do yourself a favor. The man knows what he's talking about. Put it on your TBR because
he knows ball, as the kids say.
Yeah, he does. Set during Mercy Rebellion in ancient Carthage. Oh, now you're talking about my one of my favorite periods of history. After losing the First Punic War, the eponymous Salambo, based on unnamed sister of Hannibal, with both damsel in distress and femme fatale. Sounds right up my alley. Scrupulous Aspendius and the mighty but emotion-ridden Matho, the Libyan, and the Uruk and barbarian duo.
Speaking of historical fiction, I've been reading Hilary Mantel, her Wolf Hall trilogy. Love that. Been reading some Dan Jones. I've seen that you've been reading Bernard Cornwell. Is that correct? Would you recommend his books? I've been seeing them everywhere at used bookstores and stuff.
So Bernard Cornwell, where's he on the shelf? He's over there. I have read maybe 20 books by him.
Oh, wow.
My favorite historical fiction author, one of my favorite authors of all time. I think his, let's put it this way. His Warlord Chronicles Arthurian trilogy supplanted trilogies like, I know this may sound like sacrilege, trilogies like Lord of the Rings is my favorite trilogy of all time.
No kidding. That's crazy. And I've been really wanting to get into some Arthurian legend. So
watch the deep dive. Philip and I did deep dives, a couple on his channel, one on mine, I think, into that as you go through and read the series. There's tons of deep dives about almost every booktuber you talk to, I think, whether it's Alan from Library of Alexandria, there's a lot of booktubers out there. If you ask about Warlord, they'll tell you it may not be their favorite series, but it's probably in their top 10. Like it is.
oh wow.
It is that good. It is just, I mean, what he does with the character of Diffel. If you like, you talk about likable characters now, not perfect, flawed becomes, but overall very likable and people you root for. Durfel is one of those characters like you'll just weep for his losses. You will hang on everything, like, and another brilliant frame narrative that I think you would love. It is exactly up your alley. So sorry, not sorry. Adding to the backers and add Bernard Cornwell and add Warlord Chronicles into your must get to.
If it's in your top 10, then I'm sure it's excellent. And I've been wanting to get into King Arthur, so that sounds like the way to go.
Dude, I can't say enough about what a great author. Battle scenes, there's the Janny Wurts, Miles Christian Cameron, Erickson, like Cornwell's in that top battle scene writing author group that you're just like, yeah, it's just absolutely incredible. Sorry, I think I was at this comment from Mac, where he's like you read it. His contemporary Clark Ashton Smith was fan, and Fitz Lieber used him direct references to his own Fruit and the Grey Mouse are greatly influenced D&D. Oh, wow, okay. Joe says, character and world building and home comprehension when creating a book, the artwork and related inventions such as the games played, alternate reality worlds, it's like climbing a mountain. Joe has some fabulous games that he's created. check him out and his comics. But he's a games master. So also, and again, watch that interview with Joe and I, Six Elementals, and you'll see that. All struck by some of the visuals, Florida gives us the human sacrifice into Fire Temple, the inspiration of not only SNS writers but multiple early films. Joe says also critical footing and Hanger's plus envisioning the Grohl. Yeah. So then back to Matt's comments, such as the Fury of Dream of Reader, the German sci-fi classic Metropolis, and working thrown into a factory turned to Fire Temple as fake opera and Orson Welles. Citizen Kane. Whoa. Now you're talking serious filmmaking. Wow.
I haven't seen Citizen Kane.
Oh, man, dude.
Rosebud, I'm sorry.
Dude, 200-page 9th century Malazan novel. And Joe talks about cooperative unit of artisans covering multiple skill sets and all working lifted off industry families comparing creatives. Yep. So honored. Thank you. Jared the Fan Sneaker, can't wait for sure. Like I said,
can't wait to see what cover it gets.
Yeah.
I'm sure you already know. I'm sure I've seen enough interviews with you where I'm like, oh, he knows what the cover is already.
But you can guess, based on the color scheme of the saga, you can guess what the color scheme is going to be. If you look carefully, you're certainly smart enough to figure out what the color scheme is going to be. Not necessarily with the cover. I mean, you can probably guess what the cover will feature too, but you can look at the saga, what the cover scheme is going to be. If you look at them all in order. So, but yeah, thank you. And Jared, you'll be one of the first to get an arc for sure still. You know that because you're all caught up. And yeah, I've been so humbled by your support of the series and your brilliant reviews. So, Matt, just ordered. Thank you so much, Matt. I am humbled. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy it. Joe says, fantastic. Paul, we guest of London Comic Con and hope to share the next 7 books with the prequels. I'll have stuff for you. Oh, thank you, my friend. I'm humbled to have Joe's books there. Oh, sorry, they're down there on that shelf. I can't even get to them right now. Can't even reach them because it's like a stack. So he's been blessed to exchange books and stuff. So yeah, fantastic stuff. And it's a big curtain. And then Blackadder, excited to get to Othrin. And Joe's
such an amazing character. I will say, I do think, and maybe something's wrong with me ethically, but or maybe it's just a difference of reading experiences, but a lot of people's reaction to Othrun as a protagonist, I feel like the common consensus is they think he's a lot more flawed than I do. Like, I definitely think he's flawed. Like, he's got some problems, but like, I've read Broken Empire. I've read Malazan. I've read Abercrombie. I'm like, I don't think he's like, there's definitely areas for growth. I don't think he's as bad as some of the conversation around Drowned Kingdom would lead you to believe. Like, I think there was actually, it could be just an expectation thing, because I went in hearing that Othrun was such a flawed character, and even in book 1, even before this growth, there was a shocking amount of nobility in this very flawed man. So I would consider, like, Othrun isn't, like, there are some characters where I feel bad for liking them. I don't even feel bad for liking Othrun. I think he has a lot of nobility in him. He's just like one of those kids that never left home, and he has a lot of antiquated views, and you could see in real time as he's like, oh, well, I was stupid for thinking that. I was stupid for underestimating these women. I was stupid for this. And he grows a lot. I guess I'm just not seeing the how awful Othrun is. I know so many people are like, oh, I love Othrun as a character, but he's so despicable. I'm like, is he really that despicable though? I personally, that I could just be morally bankrupt, but I don't think he's that bad.
No, I and I've had this conversation with many people, and people have the reasons. I respect them. I have, I've also said that I believe. I know it's hard for me to say that people with any credibility, but as the author, objectively, not just subjectively, I think Jake has said this as well. Jake from Nerdle Rising, that I think Othrin is not nearly as horrific as some of the most best loved fictional characters in fantasy, like the Jorgan Karas and the Sandang Gloctas and the whatever. However,
Glocta is terrible. I mean, he's so fun to read about, but if you take a step back, he's awful.
He's one of my favorite characters. But I think part of it, there's 3 things. I think number 1, I think because it is largely first person, you're in Othrin's head. He is constantly philosophizing, and you're understanding the depths of his issues, and he's constantly articulating these thoughts that are so I think that's part of it, that a lot of the other
Mm,
books, it's more detached. A lot of it
right.
is omnipotent uh, narration, and it's not, you don't get into the nuts and bolts of the
It's not as
psychology.
intimate as Oathrune's journey.
Exactly. And also too, I frankly think that the combination of topics with, colonialism, misogyny, racism, homophobia and things like that, like, I think it's tough for people in today's world to have those things openly spoken about from a character, from the point of view of someone who has those views,
Right.
because some people have gone through trauma and they feel traumatized by having experienced those things, and when you hear it from a first person perspective, they feel that it's too much life and like it's too close to home. It's too
Right.
like, I'm dealing with this right now, and like, to hear this character espousing those views, not just like to hear somebody talking about the character espousing the views, like to hear the character say, this is why, like, I think that the black people should be boiled in a pot because they're savages. Like, I think for some people
Mhm.
it's too much, and
Right.
I get that, I respect that, but I also think, and that's a very legitimate, I think, and I'm not trying to delegitimize any opinion of why people would bounce off authoring, because I also have to accept, hey, maybe I didn't write him well enough. Maybe I didn't write him well enough that people could find
I
that.
don't. I would go against that argument. I think he's one of the best self pub characters I've read. With just within, and I don't hold self pub to different standards to trad pub, but like if I'm just thinking off of like self pub protagonists, like I think Othrin stands at the top of the mountain in terms of like well written self pub characters. So I think you, at least so far in Lord and King, the first three books, I think he's just very excellently written. I think you walk that line of making him noble and flawed very, very well, at least from my subjective reading experience.
Well, thank you, sir. And again, there's many reasons I'm going to do, because, like I said, I want this to be about you, and I know we're getting close to the end here. That, yeah, authoring is perhaps not the worst, but again, I totally respect people that bounce off him, and that's not book is not every book's for everybody. That's the
Right.
way it is. But thankfully, the people that have enjoyed the book, I found a small but loyal following that they enjoy him, and they hang on his every move, and what his next move will be, and what's going to happen. So what for this question, what I would like to do, spoiler here about twist readers can expect. I didn't get a chance, Zachary, for you to kind of give us. I know you talked a bit about the book. I know we can't give away too much in terms of your own writing, in terms of Fantasy Horror, but can you tell us a little bit about what it's about, or maybe an overview, very, kind of like treetop, that you don't give
So
away anything, because I know it's not out. So
yeah, it's about, I don't know, I've never really practiced the pitch, but I guess I'll just give a very unprofessional, just rundown of kind of what it is and how it came about. So it's about like a collection of characters during this one night where these gods, or this pantheon, is like done with this empire because like one god has risen above and has made herself the sole deity of this empire. So like her sibling gods are like, yeah, we're taking her down. So they like raise the dead in this city, and this is basically like a horror novel with a lot of like eldridge necromancy going on, and you
ooh.
follow these characters that are caught up in a political intrigue, and they that for the most part is unrelated to the gods warring, but it makes it to where they're all in the city at the time when this goes down. So they're trying to survive this, and it's the whole modern day story is told in one night, but each section follows a different character's backstory and how it kind of intertwines with this empire and how they came to be here. So that was a hard thing for me to do pacing wise, because like the modern day story I had mapped out really well, but I didn't have it mapped out how each of the characters' different pasts, intertwined with each other. And that's been a big part of the revising. It's like, okay, does it feel like I'm forcing these plot points to be together because I need the backstories to intertwine, or does it make sense for why these characters are intertwining in the past? And yeah, that's basically what it's about.
Wow, I'm just so I like when you're talking. I'm just like, I need this now. Like, I need to read this, but again, I'm going to be patient. But this sounds absolutely fabulous, right up my alley. Conflicting and or meddling God's word. Like that's like I'm there. I'm sold. I'm sold. Sign me up whenever it comes out. I cannot wait. Oh, I'm so excited for that, Shay. Like that sounds amazing. So
Thank you, thank you.
congratulations
There's
on
a
writing it.
lot of work that needs done on it, though, like a lot. So it's going to be a while, more than I thought, because nursing school is a bigger drain than I originally envisioned. But yeah. I know you said you'll know when it's ready, but like and this is not me being self-deprecatory. It's not ready. Like it needs a lot more
And that's
time in the
fine,
oven.
but it will be ready one day, and that's when we're all gonna pounce. We're all gonna pounce, man. I cannot wait. And so just if I can be so bold, do you think when it is ready and published that I'm not sure how you plan to publish, and you may not know yet, but say for example, if it's self-published, do you plan to do an audiobook for it, or like, are you
I
have
guess
you done that part?
I have not thought that far ahead just because I'm so entrenched in the how do I get these plot points to really feel right. So in terms of like all the production stuff, I've just been so focused on the revisions that I just can't even really think there yet. Maybe I should start because a day will come when the revisions will be, nearing completion. But I'm not as plotted out with my stuff as PL is. I'm not as I plot out my writing, but in terms of like the actual steps to getting the book out into the world, I'm not as mapped out as you are, which is something I want to do. I think if I do that, I'll be a little bit more punctual with my goals. But right now, it's just kind of a big soup in my brain for what I'm
You don't
trying to
have to
do.
be. There's gardeners, plotters, whatever. However you write, however you plan out what what mode you're going to use to publish, what venue you're going to use to publish, whether it's traditionally or self pub or somewhere in between. It doesn't matter. It's all about writing the book, finishing it, and then seeing what happens from there. Right? Because things could change, plans could change. So all I know is that I cannot wait to read it. Shay,
Thank
like I
you,
know
thank
it's
you.
gonna be excellent. So I'm just so excited for you and so proud of you and happy for you that's something that, with all of your knowledge of books and all things literature, that I just know it's gonna be great. I know we're gonna love it. So we can't wait to see something from Zachary Shaye. Quickly, another awesome booktuber, the wonderful Alicia from Birdman Books. Thanks so much for stopping by to say hi. Check out Alicia's channel, wonderful booktuber, for things like all things, Regency Romance, Jane Austen, things like that. Definitely, you want to check her out. I
Is
have been
that the Ryura Chronicles in her cover
sorry.
photo? I think it is. I think
Okay.
it's a Michael
Yeah,
J. Sullivan book.
yeah. So
Crown
she's fan.
Tower. Yeah,
Yeah,
I've read all his books. I love Michael J. Sullivan.
yeah, she's fan. Like I said,
Yeah.
I've been honored. One of the two deep dives that I'm a part of, with my books. One is with, on my channel, with the awesome Janny Wurts and Taylor from Maybe Two Pages, and the brilliant Leila Goshi, Dr. Leila Goshi. The other
Mm.
deep dive has been on Alicia's channel with her and the wonderful Jen and Epic Tales, another brilliant booktuber. So we've been going through the books in Dragon Kingdom Saga, and yeah, we're up to date. And the next one will be for A Black Dragon on Red at some point in the future. So yeah, so just like with what Shay's doing with the Drowned Kings, after reading books in Drowned Kingdom Saga, you want deeper insights. Check out Shay's Drowned King deep dives with some brilliant booktubers. Check out the one on my channel with Janny and Taylor and Layla, and check out the one on Alicia's channel with Alicia, myself, Epic, and Jen. If you want insights
Is
in,
I think I know Epic's channel. Is he the one that does like animations?
yeah,
And yeah,
amazing,
really, really fun animations that he does
yeah,
with the books. I saw his one for Beyond Redemption, and I
yeah,
think I've seen a few others.
yeah. He's really great with that stuff. Yeah, he's amazing. But check out him and check out Alicia. She is fabulous. She's a wonderful person. My sister from another mother. We share the same birthday. She is near and dear to me. So thank you, sis, for coming out. Vaughn says quickly as he knows we're winding out. Thanks so much for your kind words, Jen. Great conversation. Wishing Shay the best with his endeavors and congratulations. Yeah,
Thank you,
all the
Vaughn.
accomplishments. We love you, Vaughn. And Joe says, yep, social, political, economic discrimination, bigotry, prejudice, hate crimes, a war between systemic evils versus system good. Fantasy requires, and it is inevitable. so sad that unfortunately, some the world we live in and historically has featured some of those horrible elements of society. However, I think we can write things about them that are also teaching points and positive, and we can find some light in the darkness there. And she says, "Yes, it is." And Max says, "Best of luck in your project, Shay.
Thank you.
Be fabulous." And she mentions every video is at least 2+ hours because we end up going off on tangents. Oh, with our deep dive, yeah. So yeah, it's I think they're fascinating. I think, but definitely check out that one. And like I said, Zach again. Zach is leading the Drowned Kings deep dive into the Drowned King saga. They just finished Lord and King one. It's up on Zach's channel, and again, it's Zach Dave from Four Corners of the Page. The Kill from Shelf Esteem, Philip Chase, and Jake from Nerdle Rising, along led by Zach. Oh yeah, we're still here, but yeah, we're signing off soon. We're just it's hard to stop talking. I feel guilty because I'm keeping Shay for so long, but I could talk to him all day, so I know he's busy, and I'm gonna let him go soon. And thanks again, my friend Jared, for saying hello. Check out Jared's channel. Cheers. Have a great day. So Zachary, you've been so generous for your time again. It's so amazing. There's so much more I want to know about you. Hopefully, you'll do the honor of coming back in the future on my channel.
Of course.
And I would love to talk to you again more about yourself. And hopefully, we get to do some more lives and deep dives together.
And hopefully, soon you can come on my channel to talk about Drowned Kingdom. That would be a ton of fun.
Oh my God. You name it, I'll be there.
It would be an absolute pleasure.
Me too. Yeah, it would be amazing. No need to embarrass my friend. You can always catch a replay on what you missed. So, but yeah. So I would just, as we're signing off, Shay, I'd love to give you the opportunity to just maybe talk a bit about, if you want to highlight a bit about the coming novel or where to find you on social media, a bit about your channel, anything you'd like to say in the space about yourself, so that those who aren't as aware or informed just know a bit about where to find you, etc.
All right. I've got a YouTube channel named Zachary Shaye where I just talk about fantasy books and comics and classics and stuff. I'm also on TikTok under the same name. And then I have an Instagram, Shaye's Library. I think Shaye's _ library. I forget what exactly the handle is. And I will be there talking about all things fantasy, classics, historical fiction, which I'm just recently getting into, and comic books. And yeah. Oh, and I'm the narrator of The Gallant by Janny Wurts. I've been trying to drop that into my videos more recently so people know about it.
Definitely check out that audiobook narration. It is brilliant. Shay is a fabulous audiobook narrator. And of course, Janny Wurts, one of the greatest living authors.
The goat.
The goat. Janny Wurts. Y'all give it up for Janny. She is amazing. And an even better human being. And movies possibly from your lips to God's ears, my friend. One day, actually. Tonight is Game of Thrones. It's Hot D, episode 2 of season 3. So gotta catch that later on. So yeah, that's great TV. So quickly for the shameless self promo on my end, I am P.L. Stewart, author of the Drowned Kingdom Saga, book 1 in a 7-book series, 6 books out. The 7th book, Sure Steel, coming out in 2027. The current one out is A Black Dragon on Red. Again, watch those deep dives, including on Zachary's channel and my channel, and also on Alicia Birdie in the Books channel, if you want insights after you read each book into the Drowned Kingdom Saga. The website is plstewart.com. All the social medias are at plstewartwrites, Twitter/X, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky. Also, I am a center with wonderful Before Go blog. Shout out to Beth Tabler, Before Go blog crew, and I'm a member of Grimdark magazine as well. You can find me in the space. I'm out there, and of course, this channel, my very tiny channel, but where I get to interview fabulous creatives such as Shay. That is the Drowned Kingdom Saga. That's the channel. Check out all the 6 elemental interviews, some fabulous guests, and also Page Turning with Taylor from Made Between the Pages. Again, another interview series where we interview people in the community. Thank you so much, everybody. Come by in the chat. You are what makes this type of long-form content amazing. Thank you so much for everybody for dropping by, participating, asking questions, commenting. Thank you. You guys are amazing. Thank you to everyone who's going to watch it on the replay as well. Oh, and Max says, yeah, thanks, Mac, for Go Canada. and South Africa in the World Cup later today. Thank you, my
Let's
friend.
go.
So for Shaye and I, we are signing off, and as he would say, peace.